is food waste. It's a huge issue. It's estimated 40% of all food that is produced is wasted.
And that's a problem for one thing because we put a lot of resources into growing food, so therefore those resources technically are lost.
The other impact on food waste in the environment is when it goes to landfill, generates greenhouse gases.
Food waste is becoming one of our most pressing issues. Almost 40% of our lands are taken up by crops, yet we waste around a third of everything we produce. At the same time, many of us are experiencing financial difficulties just from our weekly supermarket shop. It feels out of our hands, like we're just wading through mounds and mounds of rotting vegetables and mouldy bread. When I had the opportunity to talk to Professor Miranda Mirosa, Professor Sheila Skeaff, and Professor Phil Bremer of the Food Waste Innovation Research Group at the University of Otago, my most pressing question was, can we even do anything about this?
Yeah, absolutely. And which I think it's what makes it really challenging, because it means that we need to get 5 million people on board.
We've all heard of the things we need to do as individuals to help combat climate change. Take 2-minute showers, but make sure the water is freezing. Eat vegetarian or vegan, or maybe don't even eat at all. Bike to work or school in these unprecedented weather conditions. I thought that food waste would be full of the same unrealistic expectations, but I came away with some surprisingly easy and quick solutions that we can all use to combat our personal food waste.
One of the issues with wasting food is we all eat often, and food is often wasted in in small quantities, and so we're not often even aware that it's happening.
In fact, the Food Waste Innovation Group has only just got a grant to once and for all figure out how much food our country wastes. At an individual level, the task is more straightforward. It's easy as placing all food scraps into a separate bin or bag, and being aware of how much waste you individually create. It's shockingly easy, but it works. One study found that cognitive factors, such as being aware of waste and its consequences, positively affects food waste behaviours.
And so one of the things they've just trialed something in Palmerston North where they gave everybody a bin to put their food scraps in so they could separate out the food scraps from what they were sending to landfill, and people were like, I'm amazed at how much food waste I had. I'm going to reduce it. We're going to do this. They're going to compost it, have a worm farm, whatever. So that's great. So just making people aware.
But the reasons why at household level that people are wasting food are we really simple. Like, we buy too much. Often, if you've been to the supermarket when you're hungry, you'll understand you buy all sorts of things you don't necessarily intend to.
Hunger is controlled by hunger hormones. One signals that your stomach is empty, and the other signals when it's full. Walking to a place filled with food, with that hunger hormone alerting in your brain, probably means the first thing you will see will be going into your cart and then into your stomach. And it doesn't just happen with food either. Hungrier shoppers have been found to spend 64% more than those who weren't hungry, even on non-food items.
We tend not to plan well in terms of, it's around the sort of management of food and shopping, if that makes sense. Many of us don't plan our week's meals, end up buying too much. We cook too much sometimes. We don't if we're following a recipe and we end up with half a tin of tomatoes that we didn't need for that recipe. A lot of people don't actually have the one, either the desire, or two, the knowledge to be able to sort of improvise and make something from that, make something from the leftover ingredients.
So what can be done to combat this? First, eat. Before going shopping in any capacity, have a meal or a snack. Secondly, walk into a supermarket with a plan. It could be either a detailed list of every meal that week, or maybe just an idea of a couple things you would like to cook. Either way, you'll be saving money and combating the potential to waste food. If you're feeling even fancier, plan meals around using up leftovers, like that half a can of tomatoes sitting in your fridge.
Or they store it incorrectly, so they don't give the food a chance. So they take their carrots and put them in the fridge and they dry out.
You heard that right, folks. Stop putting carrots in the fridge. Food waste and nutrition is a field rife with misinformation, and unfortunately, a lot of that surrounds shelf life practices.
But fridges are often very dry environments, so they pull moisture from the carrots and your carrot goes all floppy and horrible. If you had that carrot in an airtight container with a paper towel in there, it would last a lot longer because it wouldn't lose the moisture from the carrot would go into the container, would form an equilibrium, and then it doesn't lose any more moisture.
This got me thinking, what other foods am I, and I'm sure many others, storing the wrong way? The first one was milk. My milk always stays in the door of the fridge, but this might actually be causing it to spoil faster. Every time the door opens, your milk is being exposed to fluctuating temperatures, promoting bacteria growth. The best place for it is in the back of the fridge. And finally, we're all storing our fruits wrong. As a fruit matures, it releases a gas called ethylene, which signals to the fruit that it should start ripening. The flesh softens, sugar content rises, and the flavour of the fruit deepens. This gas is also released after the fruit has been harvested, so it can wreak havoc on shelf life if not stored properly. Basically, fruits are divided into two categories. Climacteric fruits, like apples and bananas, ripen after harvest, and they experience a peak of ethylene, accelerating the ripening process. Non-climacteric fruits, like grapes and strawberries, are harvested when fully ripe, and they don't get the same peak of ethylene. Therefore, storing climacteric and non-climacteric fruits together means that the ones that are already ripened may go rotten faster, as they're exposed to more ethylene. You can also use this to your advantage. Putting an unripe piece of fruit in a paper bag with a banana could get you the perfect bite in a few hours.
So one of the things that tends to happen, because people don't want to hang around for when it's time to have seconds, they might fill up their plate, okay, quite big, and then they can't finish it. So that's a problem.
Much of our food waste occurs in institutions, like schools, university halls, and hospitals. A lot of this is down to behaviour change. Consuming food in an environment that you're not used to often leads to you creating behaviours you would not normally have in your own home.
When they come from home where food is not routinely wasted, or you can put leftovers in the fridge and go back and get them later, which is quite different than living in a hostel. Often the food in the hostel was being wasted and they just started to waste food, so their behavior changed to accommodate what was normal in the hostel, but that wasn't normal for them at home.
While many of us are not living in these institutions, these ways of combating food waste can be used pretty much everywhere.
Some of the hostels, what they've done is they've reduced the size of the plate. Okay, that's a very simple way of actually getting people, because you can't fit that much on a plate, so that can work.
This idea is called nudging, making a change to the choice environment, but not removing any choices. It can either be done by changing behaviour at the decision-making stage without alerting the decision maker, like altering plate sizes or placing water at eye level instead of fizzy drinks, or promoting a change in how the decision is made, like running an education campaign. One university in Illinois tested this theory by switching from round plates to oval ones that had less surface area, and then measuring the food selection, consumption, and waste. Using the oval plates, students wasted 20 grams less food per plate, which, when you take into account the thousands of plates being used every day, it most definitely adds up.
One of the things that's been proposed is that no green waste ever go off a property. I don't know how practical that is if you're in an apartment. So I think that's okay for if you have a house and a garden, and all your green waste is just, I think that's an interesting concept. I think that if we could, just the further ways of sharing food that we have that we don't need.
Food waste is an issue that has always stood out to me, as it is usually talked about in such a technical way. We need plant cellulose in place of plastic, anaerobic respirators using food waste, meat grown in a lab. But it's such a human issue. We are the only beings to create food products and turn food into a commodity. Maybe the ultimate solution is to build up our communities, have people we can share food and knowledge with.
Would love to see more community building around this, particularly in neighborhoods. I think that's what we need, more human contact, more ideas, more sharing. That's if I had my unlimited dream with regard to food would be that we would have people who are great gardeners roaming the streets on the weekends, helping people who aren't good gardeners, and little community hubs where people can get together and share food and make food. And
maybe we just need to respect our food more. Ask yourself, where was our meal grown? How did it get to me? What impacts is this meal and its waste having on others and the environment?
So I guess every little change that you can make to your consumption behaviour, eating behaviours, shopping behaviours will make a difference. And I guess it starts by all of us doing our bit.
And I find that really empowering because, some of these other, it's really hard to solve energy, issues. And for, this is something that, 3 times a day, all of us can sort of actively participate in being part of the solution, which is empowering.
So, there you have it. 5 surprisingly easy things that you can do to combat your personal food waste. Be aware of what you waste, eat before going to the supermarket, store your food correctly, use a smaller plate, and create a food community around you. If we all did these 5 things, we would change the future of food waste in Aotearoa. I would like to extend a big thank you towards Miranda, Sheila, and Phil for taking the time to be interviewed and spreading awareness of food waste around Aotearoa. I would also like to extend thanks to Guy Frederick for your support in creating these resources. Check out the linked article, and thank you for listening.